So welcome everyone to another edition of Ozarks Voices. Today our special guest is Jack Hamlin. Jack, thanks for meeting with us today. We're in his apartment here in Springfield, Missouri, and today's date is Tuesday, November 17th, 2020. And Jack, let's begin. Where were you born and how old are you?
I was born in Springfield, Missouri. Last month I turned 99, and I hope I reach 100.
Good.
I'm feeling real good, so I believe I'll make it.
Good, good. Well, we could talk about a lot of things, but as I mentioned, we're current area of interest is in Horton Smith, who's I guess officially he was born in Greater Highlandville.
That's what they say, yes.
Yeah, on a farm, 1908, I believe, and he was an amazing golfer.
He must have been winning the Masters twice.
Won the first Masters and then
third one.
And the third one.
Yes, sir.
And I believe he played in every Masters for at least 26 years.
I don't know that, but I'm sure he did.
More than a quarter century. And then he died young. I think he was 55 when he died.
I don't remember the date or his age, but he was young, what I call young, yes.
Yeah, and I think he died maybe in 1965. I should know this, but I don't. And you were the vice president of the park board, of the Springfield Park Board, in the early 60s when the Horton Smith Golf Course was developed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you had a big opening. I read in the paper last night that over 200 people came on that day in March of '63.
That's right. We had a ceremony at Horton Smith Golf Course as it was opening, and Sam Reynolds, the pro from Hickory Hills, Gene Salee, at that time was pro at Twin Oaks, and they also were there. So Gene Salee and Sam Reynolds and Horton Smith and Jim Ewing, who was the head of the park system at that time, and they tried to play 9 holes of golf to inaugurate the golf course.
Did they get it done? Did they get 9 holes in?
No, I don't think they did. I think they played about 4 and kind of got to Horton Smith, so he quit.
Yeah, because he had Hodgkin's disease.
He had disease, yes, sir.
And by that time in '63, he had pretty much an entire lung removed and some ribs. He was just in poor health.
You know more about him than I do, as far as you tell.
And his mom lived here in town.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So what do you remember about that day? So was he poorly? I mean, was he...
No, to me, we had a fine time. I didn't know anything about his health at that time, of course. And he was real good. As a matter of fact, after we quit the ceremony at Horton Smith, I took him out to Hickory Hills Country Club. And Sam Reynolds and I and a boy by the name of Louis Gene Hutchins, we played 4 holes of golf at Hickory Hills with him also. And he enjoyed that very much. Because there's always a fight between Joplin, Missouri and Springfield, where he played the most, or where was he bowling, so on, back and forth.
Right.
I don't know how that argument ever was settled, but I do know that I really enjoyed Horton Smith. And that evening, Louis Gene Hutchins and myself and Sam Reynolds and his wife and my wife, we took him to Hickory Hills after we played golf for dinner that night. And had a wonderful evening with him.
Yeah. And how would you describe him? Was he larger than life, or
to me,
down to earth, or?
To me, I call him down to earth. A lot of people thought he was kind of a snob or something. To me, he was not that way at all.
Yeah.
I just heard rumors that he wasn't too friendly with people.
Really?
But to me, I thought he was wonderful.
Did he have any memories of growing up in Springfield?
And we didn't talk about it at all.
Oh, okay.
Not at all about his future before that or anything else.
Yeah. Now you were the MC of that event, the grand opening. How'd that go? Were you?
To me, I was a bit nervous. I think that's about the first speech I ever had to make, and I had to memorize it. And my wife told me later, well, you did a very good job, Jack. I'm proud of you.
Was the weather good that day?
Very good. The weather was good, yes, sir.
Okay. How did you? So you were the vice president of the park board, and I've seen on online reports or that you were also like chair of the golf committee. Or,
I was of the Chamber of Commerce.
of the golf. Okay, of the
That's
chamber.
what it was. I was
Okay.
chair of the golf tournament.
Okay, okay. So what was involved in that? Was
Well, I was bringing certain people for speakers, golfers, and you got me now asking me the question, but I brought 2 other Masters winners to the Chamber of Commerce dinners we had.
okay. So you were just like you were in charge of the golf aspect
That's
of
right.
the
That's all it was.
Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else you remember about Horton or his family? I mean, was his mother? I don't know when his dad passed. Or,
You know, I didn't meet his mother at all. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Here I go to her house, but I never met her, and I never met the brother as far as this.
Uh-huh.
I had never met either one of them.
Uh-huh.
I went with Jim Ewing when we took Horton Smith to the house, and we were there not very long because
Uh-huh.
he was picking up some things, and that's when he gave me the golf clubs.
Uh-huh. So tell us about that. He gave you these golf clubs.
He gave me about 3 golf clubs. He gave Jim Ewing 3 golf clubs, old clubs, and he told me the one that he gave to me, he had used it in the British Open,
Uh-huh.
and it looked like an old club, and it looked like it was kind of a chipper or a putter.
Uh-huh.
And it had Horton Smith on it,
Uh-huh.
and it's one of the clubs that I gave to my son-in-law, and my son-in-law took it out and gave it to Horton Smith Golf Course.
Okay.
And I believe they have that course.
You think they have it out there, huh?
I believe it's there
Okay.
now, yes, sir.
All right. Now he also attended the what we now call Missouri State University. He was a student there for a while.
I
But-
didn't know that.
Yeah, but he didn't. He never talked about his growing up in Springfield.
Not at
or
all. That
anything
wouldn't
at all.
know.
Okay.
We didn't ask him any questions, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
It was more about golf and his golf career and what he's doing now, what he will be doing.
Yeah. So I got to ask you about the history of golf in the region. I did I researched a book about John T. Woodruff a few years ago,
Yes, sir.
and he was a big avid golfer.
He was a Hickory Hill, one of our golf champions, yes.
Yeah, and he really developed Hickory Hills.
He started, his father did. Are you talking about the father now?
I'm talking about the
Yeah,
father.
I
Yeah.
think he was one of the original members of Hickory Hills when he started it. Yes.
Yeah, well, that was his land. He was living on that land, and he decided to build a golf club.
I'd forgotten that, but I
course
do
there.
remember it now.
Yeah.
You're right.
And then the old country club that's down there by where Glenstone and Sunshine,
That is right.
down the intersection of Glenstone and Sunshine, he was involved. I mean, he came here in 1906, I think it was 1904.
You're good on the dates, I'm not.
So, do you have so as you were so involved in golf in the region, I mean, golfing in the Ozarks is a big deal now.
It certainly is.
Yeah, and Horton certainly helped. Of course, Payne Stewart and others.
Behind you right there is Payne Stewart gave me that. That's a
Uh-huh.
Tam O'Shanter hat. And that was given to me by,
That's Payne Stewart.
that's
huh?
Payne Stewart, yes.
Okay, and who's the monkey?
Just a friend.
Okay. So golf became big. Now you were talking about how Horton Smith. You'd heard that he was a bit aloof, but he really wasn't.
He was not to me. He could have been, but as far as I'm concerned, you can generally tell when you're visiting with somebody
Yeah.
and talking with them what their personality is. And I thought he had a wonderful personality. He talked. He was free to answer any questions we had. And I can't remember. I'm sure I asked him several questions, but I can't remember what the questions were now. It's been so long ago.
Yeah.
But he answered every one of them in detail. I do remember that.
Yeah. Okay. I've also read reports that he was, almost like an ambassador for golf. He really wanted to, grow the sport. And one of the things he was really keen on were municipal golf courses. And he took some criticism for that because, golf really kind of began as an elite sport.
Yes, sir.
You had to have some wherewithal to play golf. And he wanted to more democratize it so that anybody could enjoy the game of golf. Did he talk about that at all when he was here?
The only thing he actually talked about was his putting. He was well known for his putting.
Yeah.
And when we were at Hickory Hills, he was telling Sam Reynolds and myself about the putt. You've got to got to do everything. Just concentrate on one thing. Where is the break in this putt. If it's going to break to the left, it's going to break to the right.
Oh.
What's the speed of it? And it's all in your head, and you got to time yourself what you're going to do. Never forget that. He says you got to time yourself when you go into a putter.
Really?
And he was one of the finest putters, you know.
And in his mind, it's sort of where it's going to break was the
That's
key
the whole thing.
thing.
How much is it going to break and when it is going to break.
Uh-huh.
And he was telling one of the best putters in town, when we were talking, it was Gene Salee. Now, he was the pro at Twin Oaks. And to me, Gene Salee was one of the finest putters that I'd ever played golf with.
Uh-huh.
And he was an excellent putter.
Uh-huh. Did they ever talk about how you had to really sort of, almost like clear your mind and concentrate and, forget everything else?
That's what he did, yes, sir.
Focus on the putt.
Just focus on the putt.
And specifically where it's going to break.
That's the whole. To me, in golf, you have to read the greens.
Yeah.
Your chipping and putting means more. I'm not a great golfer. The lowest I was a 5 handicap at a Hickory, but I did putt pretty good. But I always remembered you got to get down. You got to take a look at the putt. You got to get it in your head, like Horton Smith said. You got to concentrate when and where that putt's going to break.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Remember? Did he fly in when he came in, or he was in?
I'm sure he did.
He was in Detroit, I think, at the time.
I think. Well, I don't know whether he was still a pro there or not, but he had been a pro in the Chicago area.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing those memories. Since we have a little bit of time, so you've had an amazing life yourself. Well, let's just, you were telling me walking up here that 3 years ago you jumped out of an airplane?
My 95th birthday,
Uh-huh.
the reason I jumped out of the airplane, the band of brothers that I introduced you to, I stay with them when I go back for the reunions for D-Day in Normandy. And they asked me, have you ever jumped out of an airplane? I said, no, I'd be scared to death. He said, we want you to tandem jump with us when you come back next year.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I will do that. Well, I did. I came home, had to get certified, and I went out. I have a friend here by the name of Chris Stark, who's a lawyer, and he jumps out of airplanes also. And he got me all lined up down at Mount Vernon, Missouri. And I tandem jumped there. But when I came down, you're supposed to put your legs up, and let your tandem jumper behind. He takes the blood.
Uh-huh.
I took all the blood. I couldn't get my legs up 95 years old.
Uh-huh.
The wind stopped that.
Uh-huh.
And I busted a couple of vertebrae in my back.
Really?
So that stopped my golf and a lot of other things.
Oh.
And I did not get to go back to France to jump with the band of brothers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. And then you grew up in the Ozarks.
Yes, sir. Born and raised on the north side.
North
We
side.
called it the Rabbit Patch then, but I lived just outside the railroad tracks on Commercial Street.
Uh-huh. How was that growing up?
Fine. I used to never forget, I used to play baseball all the time, and the railroad tracks were right down below me on Douglas Street where I lived. I would jump on the freight train and go out to Frisco Yards where he had a baseball field.
Really?
My mother never did know that.
Really?
But it's only about maybe a half a mile.
Uh-huh.
But I rode that freight train out.
Out to the
My
old west maintenance and repair
Yes,
shops?
sir, that's exactly what it was. That's right.
And you just hop on a freight train, huh?
I'd hop on a little freight train, carry my baseball glove.
How old were you when you did that?
Probably 11. And that's something. You
And
can't
then-
imagine today, kid.
And Commercial Street was vibrant back when you
Oh,
were.
it was good, yes, sir.
Yeah.
My
Theaters and.
my father was a lawyer on Commercial Street.
Uh-huh.
His father was a lawyer, and my dad's brother was a lawyer. There was 3 lawyers, the Hamlins, on Commercial Street.
Uh-huh. What type of law did they practice?
Just
My
civil
dad,
law.
my dad was a lawyer too.
Is that
so
right?
he did a lot of wills and estates. Graduated from Springfield High School.
1939,
Now we call it Central High.
and that's when Tom Greenwood, the old Yankee, came by. Jim Ewing had recommended me. They needed what they call a utility player to come to Joplin. They had 3 players out ill,
Uh-huh.
and they needed a utility player. Well, it's a funny thing. Tom Greenway come by and talked to me and my parents. He said, Jack, I want you to sign a 3-day playing for the Yankees here at Joplin Miners.
They just
well, I
needed.
ended up playing, I think, about 19 games or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Anytime they needed a substitute utility player, Tom Greenway, the old scout, would come and get me and then take me with him.
And sign a 3-day contract.
Yes, I'd say every time I signed a 3-day contract, and one of the newspaper boys, Wes Johnson, I believe it was,
Uh-huh.
came by one time to interview me. he saw the picture. I've lost the old contract, but he saw the old contract that I had.
Yeah.
3 days.
Okay, then the U.S. entered World War II, and you tried to enlist.
I tried to enlist in the Naval Air Corps, but while I was playing baseball, I caught rheumatic fever, and I was down for about 11 months with the rheumatic fever. Well, when the war came on, I was cured from the rheumatic disease, but I still had an enlarged heart. And the Naval Air Corps turned me down, but I had a couple of buddies that I knew had been playing baseball with. They joined the Coast Guard. And I figured, Coast Guard, that'd be fine. I'll join the Coast Guard. I heard they stay home. I won't see combat. Well, as it ended up, I ended up on Omaha Beach on D-Day as a Coast Guardman, and I was what you call a rescue swimmer. I'd go in with the landing barges to Omaha Beach on D-Day, and if they got out of the water and they hit a mine or a shell got there and blew up their LST or the LCVPs that they were riding in, I would go in as a swimmer with the rope tied around me, pull them out of the water, bring them back to my Coast Guard cutter, which is 83 foot long, and then we would take them out to the hospital ships. We're 10 miles offshore. So we had a job to do.
So, how was that scene? I mean, I've seen films made about D-Day. I mean, was it just chaotic?
There's no word to describe it. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
All you got to do is read a book and understand it. But if you were there, then you would know that war is hell.
Yeah.
And the idea when you go in, you don't know whether they're dead or not. Some of them had their arms gone, their legs gone. Most of them had the part of their face gone.
Headshots, yeah.
And we had 60 Coast Guard cutters were there at D-Day. And we were divided up with the 5 beaches. And there was 15 Coast Guard cutters with 13-man crew. And I was one of the 15 that went to Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
And altogether D-Day, our 60 cutters saved 1,486 soldiers in the water,
wounded,
and 1 British nurse
really?
Who had been blown up in LST.
Really?
They saved her. We didn't save her.
But
altogether, we estimate, I never kept count, nobody else did, we probably saved around 70 people that day.
Were you in harm's way?
All the time, bullets
Bullets flying all
People
over.
have asked me. I never heard a bullet come by. They were all. I have all of my crew members that I was with are deceased now. There are only 13 of us on our cutter, and out of the 13, I'm the only one living.
Yeah.
I did correspond with 4 of them before they died, and they told me what I did, what you did. I shot down with a 20 millimeter, the only German aircraft that was shot down on D-Day. Now, don't ask me how I did it or what. I only shot the 20 millimeter one time, but the Coast Guard, our Coast Guard gunner, got sick, and he couldn't do anything about the gun. And they asked me, we saw a plane coming over, and they identified it as a German plane. And the other guy said, Jack, you shot the gun, get on there. So I got on the 12 millimeter and shot it, and luckily shot the German plane down.
Yeah. Did it go on into after dark? I mean, were you? How long were you on the?
I was there for almost 3 days. See, we carried 1,900 gallons of gas, so we had to go back to Poole, England. That's 70 miles across the channel to get more fuel.
More fuel.
Any fuel for us
to refuel, huh?
Refuel what we had to do.
So you go back and forth, and then
we back one time,
yeah,
and we stayed in Poole for 1 day, and we came back to Normandy and stayed there for about another 3 days. Then that's the last time I was over there.
Yeah. How'd you get from the U.S. over to England? Did you troop ship or?
From the United States, they went down to Staten Island in New York, and they picked up my 83-foot cutter and put it on a Liberty ship. They took 2 cutters and put 2 cutters on a Liberty ship, or a cargo ship, and took us across the ocean.
Yeah. And how long a trip is that? 6 days?
About a week, yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was quite a while.
Yeah. What were your thoughts after D-Day? Were you just?
You know, people ask me that same question. I never talked about it. I didn't do a thing about it. It was over for me. I was home.
Yeah.
Back in school and seeing my friends.
Yeah.
But one day Ralph Manley, Ralph Manley called me up and said, Jack, why don't you make a speech with me? And I said, Ralph, what'll I talk about? He said, you was in the water, wasn't you? Was it cold? I said, yeah. Would you tell me you got a cold butt? I said, okay, I'll go with you. And I made my first speech with Ralph Manley at the Kiwanis Club.
Yeah.
And I've been making a few talk ever since.
Yeah. So you're in the water trying to rescue people.
Yes, sir.
Shouts and cries for help and
All around you, yes.
people drowning. And,
All right. And to this day, and I've said many a time, there's one person that I could not save. If I brought probably 3 or 4 out of the water, and there was one, the current coming down on D-Day out of the North Sea was going about what we would call about 15 miles an hour. It's pretty
Really?
rush, and it was cold.
Yeah.
And you go to reach for a wounded soldier, he would float away from you,
Yeah.
and you couldn't grab him. There was one soldier just kept going away, help, and I'll never forget helping, and I couldn't get him because I had the line as far as I could go.
You were
to get to him,
stretched.
and he was going away.
Oh.
And there was not another boat around or another swimmer around
Yeah.
that could save him, but I'll never forget. That's the only thing that I can get.
You vividly
broke me up
remember was
watching him float away.
you couldn't help him.
Could not help you at all.
Yeah. So the water was cold. There was a
45 degrees.
current. How close were you to the shore? Were waves breaking?
But
Or
the closest, I didn't even see the shore. I didn't see Omaha Beach.
really?
But when I talked to my buddies, they all estimate we got as close as 500 yards. Is the
Okay.
closest we got to the beach.
Uh-huh.
And that was close enough because we had all our boats had their hands full with the soldiers in the water.
Yeah. Now you didn't have a wetsuit on. This was
no,
pre.
not a pair of dungarees. Just what I had, it's all dungaree shirt.
Yeah. And you were in this cold water.
Or didn't.
How long did you stay in the water?
I wouldn't even estimate. No longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You couldn't in that water.
Right.
You couldn't.
And then you'd try to find somebody still
I'd
alive.
take one, and if just 2 of us were swimmers, and the rest of the crew were big, and they took the smallest ones, that was myself and the other little boy, but I weighed about 145, 50 pounds.
Uh-huh.
And the big boys would help, we'd bring the soldiers to our cutters, they would pick them out of the water,
Right.
put them on board. And we'd go about, we had this line, we'd only go about anywhere from 30 to 50 yards away from the boat,
Yeah.
and we'd bring them back.
And you had some kind of flotation device around your middle?
No, nothing.
Really?
No.
You were just a rope around your waist?
Just
And,
rope and we didn't even have time to didn't put them on.
really? Now, did you have some kind of a spotter on the ship that say, okay, Jack's got one, pull him in? Because you could,
The boys would be watching what you were doing.
yeah,
We had to, beside ourselves, there was, we'll take 2 from 13.
Yeah.
So you had 11 men there waiting for you
yeah.
to bring them.
How long were you over in England? How long did you stay?
Well, I was in England.
Or then were you then on French soil? For?
After D-Day, and they cleared the port at Cherbourg, France.
Right.
I was sent back over from Poole with my cutter and another cutter to Cherbourg to do work out of there.
Uh-huh.
To go out and assist the transports coming in from England bringing soldiers for the invasion, for the
Right.
taking to Europe. Well, Christmas Eve one night, 1944, a friend of mine in the Army, he's a quartermaster at one of the hospitals. He said, Jack, Christmas Eve's coming up. How about me bringing some wine down and 2 French nurses? And we'll have a little party. He'd been down before, and have a little party on your cutter. I said, say, that sounds great to me. Well, he brought 2 of the kids. One's a picture right over there. 2 darling little girls,
Uh-huh.
I tell you. And I still have a picture of it, as I say, right over here.
This woman here?
No, right over here.
This one here?
Right there, get her.
Let's see if I can get it in there.
Her name was Jacqueline.
Jacqueline. And she was a French nurse.
Yep. Excuse me.
Got it? Okay.
She was both the girls were French nurses.
Uh-huh.
Well, we're getting ready to, and he brought these 2 nurses down. He brought a turkey down. And I had a little oven there on the cutter. We was warming it up and getting ready to drink our wine. And we got a call from the headquarters that there's a boat in trouble 5 miles off Cherbourg at buoy number so-and-so. You got to go out there. But done me, I put the nurses off our cutter and put them on shore. And I take the cutter out. Well, that evening, I had given I was in charge, and I had given half of my crew liberty to go into Cherbourg to party on Christmas Eve, not knowing we were going to have an emergency.
Yeah.
Well, I got rid of the good-looking ones so I could have the two nurses to myself with a couple of the boys on the cutter.
You sent the better-looking young men to shore.
Believe me, if one was Tom Butler, and he was a good-looking Irishman. But I got rid of the best-looking ones. And then we went out, and it was the Leopoldville was sinking. With the Belgian Congo. And they had the 66th Black Panther Division aboard, 2,200. But we lost 870 that night off this cutter. It was sunk by a German submarine. We saved about 50 that night off the cutter.
Oh my God.
I mean, off the transport, Leopoldville.
Yeah. Huh. On
That
Christmas
was my Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve of 44.
And then after we rescued all of them, then I started going with this girl for about 8 months. I was in
Really?
Cherbourg area. Oh, she's a beautiful gal.
Was it serious?
No, nothing serious, but she couldn't speak English. I couldn't speak French, but we didn't need it.
Now you told me yesterday you've got a girlfriend right now.
Yes, Margaret Banta, Banta Food Company. Anyway, she's here,
and she's younger than you.
She's 1939. When I was graduate, it was 19, and I'm going into Drury College.
So you're a freshman at Drury.
I was freshman at Drury.
And you're like, what, 18, 19 years old? Yeah.
A boy by the name of Paul Jesuit was a Sigma Nu with me. Well, he brought a girl with him to Bangor when I was at the Sigma Nu chapter that we both belonged to. And I said, my God, I said, that girl is your girlfriend? She said, no, that's my sister. I said, she's awfully good looking. You think she'd have a date with me? He said, well, ask her. Well, I asked her. And we had 3 different dates until my wife found out she was only 14 years
Your
old.
mother. Your mother. My
mother found out.
Yeah, not your wife, but your mother.
She was a friend of her mother's. He found out that she was only 14 years old while I was dating her.
So you were a college man dating a 14.
And she was in Cherry Junior High School. Now,
and you dated 3 times before you got...
3 days before I got caught. Well, she gets married, I get married. We lived one block apart for 60 years.
Did you know that you were living a block?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We both belonged to Hickory Hills, and she played golf, and I'd see her, and she hadn't changed a bit. She was good looking, still good looking, and her husband passed away, and my wife passed away. She moved in here, I moved in here, and she lived down the hallway.
Did she move in here before you?
She moved in before I did, about a year.
Okay.
And I sold my home, decided to move over here where she was. We were dating each other. Been going with her 8 years now.
8 years. So, boy, that's amazing. Between 1939 and the 20 teens, you were true to each other in a way.
I had a birthday. I made my 99th birthday last month, and she makes her 94th this month. Matter of fact, tomorrow's her birthday. She'll be 94.
Well, tell her happy birthday.
I'll do that for you. I'll do that, Tom. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for visiting with us today.
It's been my honor, my pleasure. Thank you, Tom, for taking your time.
Take care.